We got a lot of handsome bald fellow on the set right now. It's UFC 205. It's New York City. It's the Garden. It's Saturday night, man. I can't imagine the level of excitement. It's only Tuesday. How do you manage the not anxiousness, but the excitement between now and then?
Yeah, I got to New York on Sunday, and it really won't start hitting me till probably Thursday. Thursday's our press conference, and Friday are the weigh-ins, and then obviously when I walk into the Garden on Saturday night, it's gonna be special. It's gonna be one of those moments. There's very few of these moments that I take in, but Saturday I'm gonna.
Good, and you should, right? I mean, I'm a big believer in that. You got to take a second just to stop and look around and take inventory, because if you don't, you miss all the good stuff.
I don't do it enough.
Well, do it Saturday.
Yeah.
Not that you need advice from me. Now, one of the things you're great at, and I mean great at this, and it's your job, is to sell and to promote. And when it comes to cards, I don't remember ever hearing like UFC 190 whatever, and you're like, nah,
right.
Never.
Right.
But what makes Saturday's card particularly stand out to you?
Well, first of all, if you look at the battle we've had over the last 8 years to get into New York, right, number one. And I believe that all that fighting and the build-up and everything made this even bigger, this moment even bigger. I built the biggest, baddest card, not only in UFC history, but probably in the history of combat sports. From top to bottom, this whole card, if I started halfway through the prelims, these guys could headline. Even the casual fan who just dips in for some of the big ones are blown away and know that this is the biggest card ever.
But you got Conor up there, and here's a guy that you speak of, a casual fan. He has done what's the most difficult thing in sports to do. I don't care what your sport is, but to cross over and become a name that the grandma knows. That it's like my guy Russillo on radio would always say, if you become like a topic on The View or something, the morning shows, they know who you are, and he's done that. For you, you've had stars. What makes him unique?
What makes him special and different than anybody else? If you look at how famous Ronda Rousey is, Ronda Rousey acts. She's the first woman, to ever come in and win a title.
And be a true headliner.
Yeah, and exploded onto the scene. There's a lot of reasons why Ronda became big. What makes Conor so special is men are a dime a dozen. The men have been fighting since the beginning of time and everything else. This guy broke through. And one of the reasons is every time this guy fights, most people, when they get to the level that he's at, making the money, the fame, and all the other things, they get a little skittish. They don't take the chances and the risks they took on their way coming up. This guy puts all the chips on the table every time he fights. And believe me, I've been around fighters since I was 19 years old. I've never seen anybody like Conor McGregor. And that's what makes him special. Plus, tell me the last time you saw a boring Conor McGregor fight. Well, they don't exist.
Or presser.
Or press conference. Or weigh-in.
But I imagine when you have to try to corral the energy and the passion and the fury that is Conor McGregor, I imagine your job, and it has been at times, it's a challenge, is it not?
And I don't try to corral the lunatic that is Conor McGregor. I let Conor McGregor be Conor McGregor. You don't mess with that. When you have something that's that great, you step back and you go, let him do what he does. This is who he is. This is what he does. Yeah, there's times when he gets a little bit over his skis and he gets a little crazy. And you know what? At the end of the day, he's not as difficult to deal with behind the scenes as people might think. And there's a lot of misconceptions about our relationship. I have a good relationship with Conor.
For Bones Jones, how optimistic are you that there can be another chapter in this book that ends the book appropriately?
I'm starting to not become optimistic about what's next for Jon Jones. I think Jon has a lot to prove to me, to the fans, and definitely to himself. He's proved everything in the octagon. I mean, this kid could have been one of the greatest ever. I mean, I believe that he's the greatest talent we've ever seen. But in being a great talent, it has to be great in the octagon and outside of the octagon, and he has failed miserably. I don't know if I have the confidence in him to headline an event with him again, because it costs millions of dollars. We put millions of dollars into the advertising and all the promotion, and I don't have the confidence in him to headline a card these days.
Well, I mean, and I think that we would both agree that the most important thing is to have his life in order, and then if he can get that together, then you can worry about what comes next in the octagon. But understanding the chapters that precede where we are, why you wouldn't be optimistic. I'm glad we're having this conversation face to face just so I can own something.
Okay.
I've rarely been as wrong as I was about your sport. And initially, when this first started, I paraphrasing myself, but I'm pretty sure I characterized it as meatheads and bad T-shirts. And then it got worse. And then it got worse from there. And what you no, seriously though, you all have built truly an empire. And I look at McGregor and Diaz this year, and you look at this has been an amazing year in sports. You put together like year-end lists. That'll be on the list for the most memorable things that happened in sports. And I think there were a lot of people that doubted, but I don't see those people anymore saying what you're not. I think people are just recognizing and acknowledging what you guys are. Do you feel that way?
No, it's true, and thank you for saying that. You know, when we grew up, you know, you and I, there were the traditional ball and stick sports. And as we started, when we bought the UFC back in 2001, and we started to meet with a lot of the media guys, they were way older than us. The guys who were running the newsrooms, they didn't want to hear about this.
Oh, barbaric, this, that, and the other.
But the younger generation was into it. Now, if you look over the last 16 years, if you think about people, you know, that were anywhere from 8 years old to 19, they grew up with the UFC. So the UFC, and again, you and I grew up, your parents would put you in karate or taekwondo. This is the martial art that men, women, and children are taking all over the world. So it's fascinating how fast it has changed and how many. But you know, I don't blame you for being a naysayer. I was a naysayer at one time too, until I got educated about the sport.
Well, I mean, last laughs or whatever. You guys are going to be in New York City on Saturday night. I know a lot of people fought metaphorically to get this to happen. I know how excited you guys are. I appreciate your kindness with your time, and enjoy Saturday. I know you will.
Thanks for having me.
That's our pleasure. All the best.
Appreciate it.
Dana White, UFC 205, New York City. Buy it. Lots of money is going to be made. Piles of money.